All right, so today we're diving into something pretty fascinating: the history of how the Bible has been interpreted. This isn't just about old books and dusty scholars. It's a journey through completely different ways of seeing, different ways of understanding, and honestly, it reveals as much about us, the readers, as it does about the text itself.
I mean, let's just jump right in. Think about it. When you pick up a book, a collection of stories and laws written thousands of years ago from a totally different culture, how do you even start to figure out what it means? It's a huge question, and believe me, the answer has changed a lot over the centuries.
And here's the thing, Dr. Mathewson really nails it with this quote. Nobody comes to this text with fresh eyes. We never read in a vacuum. Whether you realize it or not, you and I are standing on the shoulders of generations of people who wrestled with these exact same passages. Their ideas have shaped the very way we think.
So here's how we're going to break this story down. We're going to start with the very first Christians, then journey through 1,000 years' search for hidden meanings, and then hit a revolutionary shift in thinking that honestly still affects us all today. And finally, we'll ask the big question: why does any of this even matter?
Okay, so let's rewind all the way back to the beginning. We're talking about the authors of the New Testament. Now, these guys were reading scriptures they knew inside and out, what we now call the Old Testament. But for them, something had just happened that fundamentally changed everything. They had this new interpretive lens, you could call it, a new way of seeing everything. And that lens was their conviction that Jesus was the climax of the entire story. He was the key that unlocked what they believed was the true meaning of it all.
The author of Hebrews puts it perfectly. The idea wasn't that Jesus was setting the Old Testament aside or replacing it, not at all. It was that he was completing it. And this one idea, this fulfillment lens, it colored everything about how they read and used their scriptures.
Okay, so that's the big idea. But how did this fulfillment lens actually work? How did they use it on a practical level to connect the dots between their scriptures and Jesus? Well, they had a couple of key methods.
They basically had two major tools in their toolkit. On one hand, you had literal fulfillment, which is pretty straightforward. A prediction is made, and they see it come true. But on the other hand, you had something a bit more complex, more like pattern recognition, called typological fulfillment.
A super clear example of literal fulfillment: the Messiah's birthplace. The prophet Micah said the ruler would come from Bethlehem. Matthew in his gospel points to Jesus' birth there and says, see, direct hit. Plain and simple.
But then you get these other examples that are, well, they're a little trickier. It's more like a puzzle. Take this quote from the prophet Hosea that Matthew uses after Jesus' family flees to Egypt. Matthew says this event fulfilled this line.
But you know, if you actually go back and read that verse in Hosea, it's not a prediction about the future at all. It's looking backward. Hosea is talking about history, about God bringing the entire nation of Israel, who he calls his son, out of slavery in Egypt.
So what in the world is Matthew doing here? He's not claiming Hosea was a fortune teller. No, he's seeing a pattern, a type. He's saying, look, God rescued his son, Israel, from Egypt way back then. And now he's doing it again, but in a bigger, more ultimate way, by rescuing his true son, Jesus, from Egypt. The first story becomes a blueprint for the second.
All right, so let's fast forward a bit. After the New Testament authors, the next generations of church leaders, known as the Church Fathers, started developing even more creative ways to find meaning, especially in some of the really difficult parts of the Old Testament.
And the method that really took over for like 1,000 years was something called allegory. This was all about searching for a deeper, hidden spiritual meaning behind the literal words. For many, this hidden meaning wasn't just a meaning, it was the true meaning.
And you want to see a classic, maybe the most famous example of this in action, we have to look at the great theologian Augustine and what he did with Jesus' parable of the Good Samaritan. Now, on the surface, it's a pretty clear story about loving your neighbor. But for Augustine, that was just scratching the surface.
I mean, just look at this. For Augustine, almost every single detail becomes a symbol. The man isn't just a guy, he's Adam. The robbers, that's the devil. The Samaritan is Christ. The inn is the church. Even the innkeeper is the Apostle Paul. Suddenly, this simple parable transforms into this huge, symbolic drama of the entire biblical story of salvation.
Okay, so for centuries, this allegorical method, along with church tradition, was king. It was the final word. But then, in the 16th century, everything changes. A theological earthquake hits Europe, and we call it the Protestant Reformation.
And this was a massive, massive pivot in how people read the Bible.
Reformers like Martin Luther and John Calvin looked at all this allegory and basically said, whoa, hold on, this has gotten way too complicated, and who decides which allegory is right? They argued that the ultimate authority wasn't the church's tradition, but the scripture itself.
So they championed a totally new way of reading. Their whole thing was, let's get back to basics. Let's go back to the original languages, Hebrew and Greek. Let's focus on finding the single, plain, literal meaning of the text. And let's pay super close attention to the grammar and the historical context. The goal was to hear what the original author meant, not to uncover some secret spiritual code.
Okay, so why should we care about any of this ancient history? Well, because the Reformation didn't just stay in the 16th century. It fundamentally changed how pretty much everyone in the Western world reads any text, whether they realize it or not.
Think about it. The way we instinctively read today, when you look up the historical context of something, or when you analyze the grammar of a sentence to get the meaning, that is a direct inheritance from the Reformers. But maybe the most revolutionary idea was this concept of clarity. The belief that the essential message of the Bible wasn't locked away for priests and scholars, but could be understood by ordinary people. The idea that you could pick it up, read it, and get it, that was a game changer.
So here's the big takeaway from our whole journey. Everyone reads through a lens. There's just no way around it. The New Testament authors had their fulfillment lens. Augustine had his allegorical lens. The Reformers came along with their grammatical historical lens. There is no such thing as a pure, unfiltered reading. We're all part of this long tradition.
And that brings us right back to ourselves, doesn't it? Knowing this history isn't just a fun fact. It allows us to be a little more self-aware, to ask ourselves, okay, what are my assumptions? What lenses am I looking through when I read? And asking that question is the first step toward becoming a more thoughtful and a more honest reader.